Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another week of Good Guy Sports, joined by myself, your host for today, Blake Gerke, and our usual cast of characters, Jackson Gerke, Mike Roby, and Blake Lineberger, joining us to do a big preview of, yes, you guessed it, the Final Four taking place this weekend in San Antonio. As I'm sure many of you are aware, our matchups we have this Saturday is all number one seeds. So who would have guessed it? Maybe some people did. Maybe some people thought it was too obvious that it wouldn't happen. But we have the rare number one seed matchup all the way through here, taking place this weekend in San Antonio. The Duke Blue Devils taking on the Houston Cougars. And then before that game as well, we have the all SEC battle of Auburn versus Florida. So a lot of the teams, some of these teams that were tipped to have a good season at the beginning of the year and carried that all the way through, and then maybe a few that kind of played their way well into the season. So if we're just looking at the different regions and kind of how they played out as well, to recap what we saw in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, starting with the Duke team. Obviously, we've got Duke bias here, being in North Carolina. They played pretty well all throughout the tournament. I would suggest maybe the game they were maybe contested the most in would have been the Sweet 16 matchup against Arizona. That one ended up being pretty close, and Flag had some big plays kind of down the stretch there to get them over the line. The Alabama game was pretty close, in the Elite Eight was pretty close in the first half, and then Duke kind of pulled away. That's kind of been the story for a lot of these matchups for Duke so far. Is they're kind of feeling their way through the first part of the game, and then kind of the quality and the depth shows in the second half, particularly against Alabama and Baylor as well. I think in that second round matchup as well. So they've certainly, I think there were some question marks perhaps about and we talked about on the show this year, how strong is the ACC? How good is this Duke team really? But I think they've answered a lot of their critics so far, and they found a place in the Final Four. So let's start with Duke. Jackson. How impressed have you been with their run to this Final Four so far?
Oh, very impressed. Cooper, if when you look at Cooper Flag, I think he has had the most impressive season the Duke Blue Devils that you could ask for. I mean, John Shire and Cooper Flag and really by far the best player on the team. Really, the upcoming NBA draft prospect pick for this upcoming year that he'd be really excited about. So I think for me about this Duke team that they have been more impressive and fun to watch. Kind of a crazy kind of a season at times. I look back at their season that they had, at how they've won a few games and lost a few games. So I'm looking to the Blue Devils about Mason Gillis and Isaiah Evans and Caleb Foster and Malwatch and those guys have been very, to me, I feel like have been very impressive to me from the best start they had. And this Duke team just whenever they were trailing, they always found a way to come from behind and in like games that they were out of reach at times. And the next thing you know, Coach John Shire and those guys just always find ways have always find ways to win whenever games are not headed going their way. And I just think that Mike Brown and Cooper Flag and their star players and Colin Knippel and Patrick Nababi II and Tyler Proctor and Caleb Foster and those Cameron Southfield and Caleb Foster and those guys just always seem to find a way to get some rhythm on each of their play that they always use, whether it's 3 pointers or just really staying hot from their shots and their buckets and their looks they've been getting, which have been very impressive to me. And so far, I would have to say that this Duke team has been by far elite and just very dominant. And I think that we can all agree of how this team is in the Final Four for a reason because of how
Yeah.
great of a roster and team they are, and they are and they are in the they are in the Final Four for a reason, and one win away from advancing to play for a national championship on Monday night, and I was staying their way. Of course, is you got to get past first is Calvin Sampson and the Houston Cougars, and
Hmm.
they also have been the more biggest storyline too. Much like the Duke Bubbles with star players, where Kevin Sampson and the Houston Cougars that they are one of that they too are number one. They too are a number one seed. The only thing they have missing is they don't have a national title. So who knows? Maybe this can be the year that the Houston Cougars and Kevin Sampson can finally win a national championship. And gotta get past the John Shire Duke Biddles first. But if they were to do it in their home state of Texas with their fans cheering in attendance,
Hmm.
that would be very special. And I think if that were to happen, winning a national title for the first time ever in program history for Kevin Sampson for all these years he's been through, and for this program and for how special it is for his guys, his players, that would be very special and would definitely make it into a movie and a big storyline and something to remember in the memory books if that were to happen.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. I think that matchup, maybe on paper, I think Duke is obviously, um, they're favored by a decent amount of points in that one. But I don't know, Mike, I'll jump to you. Do you think
Hmm.
maybe Duke, I think a lot of people, they were obviously up there with Auburn in that number one spot for a lot of the year. Do you think maybe they've been the best team this whole time? They just haven't been tested in the ACC and maybe these games, and we're thinking too much about this, or I mean, they're going to have their hands cut out for them in the Final Four, though, obviously going against the one seeds, right? So this is going to be the real test for the team at this point,
Yeah,
right?
no, I think Duke is the best team. Um, Last weekend they held Alabama, who believe was the number one scoring offense, to 65 points. So, yeah, Houston's going to be tough. They're the number one defensive team in the league. But I think the th three keys for Duke to win are going to be continue to hit the three pointers. They hit 46 over a little over 46% of the three pointers against Alabama.
Hmm.
Get Proctor hot
Right.
because Knuppel and Flag going to have their work cut out for him by the Houston defense. And if Proctor gets hot, then a lot of pressure is going to be off of Flag and Knuppel. And then the third would be for Duke to get Jawan Roberts into foul trouble. He's been the last couple games, he's had four fouls, so he's had to ride the pine because of foul trouble. Duke does that to him and gets him to ride the bench for a little while. Then as long as Duke stays calm and plays Blue Devil basketball,
Hmm.
then it's going to be a close game. But Duke wins this one.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's a good point as well. I think it's very matchup dependent, a lot of these games, and you're kind of relying on your depth and your different size that you have coming off the bench. So, yeah, definitely each matchup will present a different challenge for sure as you progress through a tournament. Blake Limberg, I'll jump to you. Do you think Duke is just too much quality for Houston here? And do you think maybe they're been the best team this whole time, but Houston is obviously a number one seed as well, so it's going to be a close one. But I mean, Duke too much quality, you think?
I think it's a mix of both things. Listen, I'm never gonna fade a Mike Roby call. I'm gonna put it to you like that. That man does his research. Uh, yeah, here's the thing. There's a couple of things going on. I think Duke, anything can happen, right? But Duke all around, there's no weaknesses on the team. They're super long. And I mean, I remember when I was in South Carolina, we had a 6'5" point guard and shooting guard. That was long back then. Duke, I think some of their shortest lineups sometimes can be like 6'6", 6'7". It's hard to play offense on teams that can stretch out that far. They have offense, they have defense, they've got a bench, they're deep. Um, can Houston win? Absolutely. Here's another thing though. If you look at the back of Duke's jerseys, they have a gold tab on the back of the jersey. And Nike makes jerseys. And if you've ever won the championship with the Nike logo, they will give you a gold tab on the back of your jersey. So Carolina has one, Duke has one on the back of their jerseys, and any team that's ever won the tournament when sponsored by Nike. You cannot, to me, that's irreplaceable. They've been there, they've done that. Shires won it with Coach K. I think that the players understand that Duke is almost an expectation. And I think, to be fair, that plays into it. I think Houston is walking into this. They probably wouldn't tell you, but a little nervous, a little like we're probably not supposed to win this. So yeah, I think Duke wins. I think Houston's a good team. It's cool to see all four number ones made it, but I think Duke's too good. They're just so solid all around. We talked about the $1.5 million McDonald's bucks bet that the sports book is a little nervous about a few weeks ago that somebody has on Duke, and I bet they're getting really nervous right now. So for them, hopefully Houston, but I think it's LGD, as Mike said.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think up to this point, in terms of the matchups or the how they got here, these two teams, Duke has been pretty comfortable. Like I mentioned, the Arizona game, they did end up having to sweat out a little bit towards the end there. But most of these games have been pretty close in the first half, and then, like I mentioned, sort of the bench options that Duke has ultimately pull them through in the second half, and that kind of leads them out there. But Houston has been a little bit different. They sweated out that game against Purdue, and Tennessee they ended up beating by a pretty wide margin. And even the game before, the Purdue game against Gonzaga, that was probably closer than you would expect a traditional second round game to be as well, perhaps. And obviously, it's all dependent on what region you're in, and the matchups can vary. It's all dependent on what kind of draw you get and whatnot. But um, I think that kind of does show that, I think Duke has been the best team, like Mike said, and has been consistent and has had the best depth and the best player. So if Houston wants to try to stop that, they're going to have to really focus on taking away the things that Duke does well, obviously eliminating those threes. But I think Jackson mentioned Malawach as well, and I've been really impressed watching him these past couple of games, especially in going in all the way back to the ACC tournament, and then the games here as well. He's really been able. He's been an important part of the team, and I think a lot of people were not too sure about the Duke bigs and even some of the players off the bench as well from Duke have been important um, in terms of providing that size. And I think Malawach has impressed a lot of people. I know he's certainly coming onto the radar for a lot of draft experts as well, kind of seeing how much of a presence he's been able to provide there, and Gogba as well when he comes in and gets some minutes as that in that big man position has been really really impressive in terms of establishing that paint that interior presence. So expect Malawach to play a big part if Duke wants to advance to this one and obviously make it to the championship. He's certainly going to be a big factor. And then as well, like Jack mentioned, Cooper Flag, and then Knipple as well, if he's able to establish the outside shot with the three. Similarly for Proctor, those are kind of the traditional ways that Duke has been able to pour it on. But if Houston's able to cut out one of these avenues that Duke likes to establish, then they're going to have to shift and adapt. But like I mentioned, that's been one of the strengths of this Duke team is being able to beat you in different ways and bringing in different options off the bench as well. The likes of Isaiah Evans coming off the bench, big scorer, Mason Gillis providing that rebounding and hustling off the bench, and even Malik Brown, who's recently back from an injury as well, providing that length on defense. So I'm picking Duke, and I think it sounds like Mike and Blake are also on Duke as well. And I'm assuming you're picking Duke in this one, Jack.
Um, yes, I am. I am all on agreement with all you on the panel. Yes, I I do have Duke winning, but in a very close tight one.
Yeah, no, I think Houston is obviously we don't want to overlook a one seed, do we? I mean, they're you
Okay.
can argue maybe the quality of the Big 12 and I think in recent tournaments, Houston has kind of flattered to deceive, haven't they, in terms of being one of those higher seeds. It never seems like they're quite able to get over the line. So, and obviously getting to the Final Four in of itself is a big achievement for a lot of programs. I think in terms of actually how many Final Fours um, Houston has made it to. I think Jackson, you mentioned they've actually never won a national championship. In terms of Final Fours, though, they have actually made quite a few back in I think they made one a couple years ago in 21, and then they made it to the Final Four back in the 80s a few times as well. So they've got some pedigree there for sure, but they actually lost back-to-back title games in 83 and 84 for all you college basketball historians out there. So
And I think one of those was the Georgetown.
right, yeah. And
Hmm.
I think they'll certainly be looking to buck that trend, won't they? And I think they had that was back in the days when they had Hakeem, right? I think in the 80s with who ended up playing for the Houston Rockets as well. So yeah, a little bit of there's definitely some history there, but they're going up against a team that's a blue blood as they call it, right, Jack, and the Duke Blue Devils. So if you're going off the historical precedent, you got to give Duke the edge there. So, but listen, this is 2025, so history can give us some lessons in terms of that, but you gotta pay attention to the here and now, right?
That's right. Got to.
So let's jump to the other matchup in the Final Four. And this one I think is a bit tougher to call. And I'm referring to, of course, the matchup on Saturday at 6 o'clock between the Florida Gators and the Auburn Tigers. And no, I'm not talking about an SEC football game in October. I'm talking about the Final Four. And this has been a trend that we've talked about a lot, right? Is the SEC dominance in college basketball. And I think it's an interesting discussion point, certainly the SEC, um, I guess, prominence uprising here in the college basketball landscape. But traditionally, you would, if we're talking about traditional powers in college basketball, we think of the SEC, we think of the likes of Kentucky, and that's about it, right? But nowadays, and I think we have NIL a huge part to play in that, obviously, with the bigger college football programs in the SEC are bringing in more money, football,
Yeah.
whatever sport, and then they're able to kind of translate that into basketball, right? And so I think
Well,
Florida and Auburn are
yeah,
good examples of that, right?
yeah. And Florida's shown up in the Final Four before.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, Florida does have that precedent of being a good basketball school for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
I think
but
it's the other schools in the SEC that made the tournament that you don't necessarily think of as basketball programs.
right, exactly. I think Auburn and Alabama, Auburn, since they've brought in Bruce Pearl, have certainly improved their prospects, and you can say something about Alabama with Nate Oates as well. But they've invested certainly in their coaches. Obviously, that's the first step is bringing in
Hmm.
that coach, and then getting in players. And like Auburn, obviously they got their big National Player of the Year contender Broom as well from the he transferred in from a smaller program as well. And he's been a huge part of their season up to this point. And Florida as well has kind of come on as of late, right? I think Auburn was one of those teams that were heavily favored preseason to be a national champion contender. And they pretty much stayed that way throughout most of the year. I think Florida kind of steadily rose throughout the season, and obviously in the SEC tournament they kind of peaked there, winning that, um, and then translating that into the number one seed as well. And they've played pretty good basketball all the way through. I know they had a couple of tight games up to this point. I'm thinking mainly of that one against Connecticut, right? The defending national champions, where there's some controversy about
Hmm.
the about the officiating, but that was mainly just sour grapes on the UConn part, it seems
Yeah.
like. But
Well,
and then
Florida's been hot
they
uh,
have the
for
Florida team, yeah.
at the end of their regular season, ever since they went down to the jungle on February 8th and beat the Tigers 90 to 81,
Hmm.
I think they only lost one other game through the regular season.
Right.
So they've been hot. And the end of the regular season, Auburn cooled down.
Yeah.
Uh, but now we're in the tournament, so regular season doesn't count.
No, for sure, for sure. And I think Auburn, Auburn has played some pretty tough games in their past couple of matchups, playing against both Michigan and Michigan State. Those games, the final score actually didn't make those games seem closer than they were because those games were tight for the majority of it.
Yeah,
Even the Creighton game as well, where they ended up winning by 12 in the second round. Creighton made
yeah,
them sweat it out for sure. If you watch that game, you would know
yeah.
for sure.
Well, Florida's scary. They were 9 points down with 3:14 on the clock against Texas Tech, and then went on a tear.
Yeah, they've got that capability to really turn it on, don't they?
Yeah, I mean when they get hot, man, they gonna get hot. So it's gonna be a good game. Um, Couple things, stats for Auburn against Michigan State. They only hit 55% of their free throws,
Hmm.
and their 3-point percentage was only 28%.
Yeah.
So, whereas Florida against Texas Tech was 92% out the free throw line, and they hit 37.5% on the three pointers.
Yeah,
And
yeah. They've been hitting a lot of these shots here, Jack, haven't they, Florida? I mean, I have to
Oh yeah.
say Auburn was probably the most they were I guess you would say Auburn were the more fancy team throughout the whole year, but like Mike said, Florida has really gained a lot of momentum here the past couple of weeks, right? So I don't know. How do you see this one playing out, Jack?
It's interesting because, like you said, Blake, one team that has struggled in the last few games before the NCAA tournament, Auburn just somehow made it in the tournament and turned it around. Where it's fascinating because you have Jamar Broome, who is limited with a elbow injury, who is questionable, meaning that he's not 100%. Something that we're going to have to keep our eye on because without him, Auburn's not going to be the same team. So, so the keys for that one for me is in this matchup is that for Auburn is try not to make too many mistakes and turn the ball over and just don't do anything silly or just really rely on the game plan for Bruce Pearl, those guys, and just somehow just round two between those two games for this game for where they last met at the arena back in Auburn, where Florida pretty much took control of that game and dominated and dominated and went on a run and on a scoring run and just somehow and just somehow all clicking on all cylinders and really and then really just couldn't slow down and just and and in that game Auburn defensively couldn't get any stops in that game. So for me the game plan heading into this one is for Auburn to really step it up and just make some plays and try to and just get some stops on defense and try to get the ball movement and get the ball control more more as you can so that whenever the game plan goes right and that if you're Auburn you got to rely on your players and your teammates and just try to do everything you can to make those big shot buckets and try to make sure you get the right shots down and just get some great looks and just don't make any too many mistakes and just try to get them out of foul trouble and just do everything you can to make this happen so that Auburn can rely on their game plan for what Bruce Pearl can do so that they can have a chance. And on the flip side for Florida, man, they have been the most dominating and unstoppable team to watch. Like every time they trail, whenever it was the UConn game or the Texas Tech, where they always seem to find a way and they never go away. And this team just never shows any quit. And I think Todd Golden and then I think Coach Todd Golden and Walter Clayton Jr. have really showed you why of how a much dominant player and coach they have for this locker room and for those players that they really that they're in this championship game and Final Four for a reason because of that and it shows you how really great of a team and a great leadership this team has, especially for those who we know who's a fan of this team or that we doubt it, but that this Florida team just really looks very good, and they're and they're dominant on both defensive and offensive side of the ball, where they can really do it all.
Hmm.
This team just looks very good and dominant. They got great players
So does that
and,
mean you're
and a great fan base,
picking?
and I think that to me, and I think that to me, it shows you of how great of a team that is going to be against another one seed in the same conference with the SEC,
Hmm.
which is crazy. So to me, it shows you it's going to be must see TV. Though Florida, to me, just looks so dominant. They're so good. They're so talented on both ends of the court, and it just shows you just how great of a team they are. And I think that they did just that.
So what's your prediction, Jack, for this game?
Well, it's going to be a very close one,
I can tell
much
you're
like
torn.
in the Duke Houston game. But I think Florida wins by 2 points.
I pretty much the same as you, Jack. I think it's going to be a close game, and I'm edging Florida just based off of the momentum it seems like they have. Mike, what's your final pick for this one?
Gators.
Gators. Okay.
I think Walter Clayton Jr. is when he gets hot, he's unstoppable.
Yeah. He's been playing really well. Blake Lineberger, are you going to make a 4 for 4 here for the Gators?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, they beat Auburn at Auburn, and yeah, yeah, Florida Gators, the swamp.
Fair enough. Fair
What a
enough.
great place to visit. It's a cool town. I don't know if you guys have been to. I think Auburn and Gainesville are both in this category, but that's all there is, man. These college towns, there's nothing else there except the college. So, they really get behind it. But I think Auburn's no different in that scenario. Where is Auburn? Is it in Auburn? Is Auburn in
Yeah,
It's
Auburn?
it's an
in
Auburn.
it's
Okay.
in it's in Alabama.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the
And
city it's in is Auburn.
Toomer's Corner is in Auburn or Alabama.
It's in Auburn.
That's an Auburn. Yeah. That's their
And it
tradition.
got
They TP the tree after a big
and it
game,
just
right?
got TP'd recently,
I
right?
think when they made the Final Four, yeah, I believe, yeah.
Okay.
Those
So
fans just go crazy over there, Blake, and
I don't know if they're going to hold it
and
for if they beat Florida, would they hold it for the championship or would they TP if they beat Florida? I don't know. We'll have to. I don't know if
Oh,
the.
just TP it
I mean, might
twice.
as well, right?
yeah, if they lose,
Toilet
then
paper's cheap
yes,
these days.
they're going to do that TP and do that twice over there on that tree branch if they were to lose. But if they were to win, yeah, it'll be a different story. Those students will go crazy over there if they were to pull off the big win in that game. It should be very fascinating to watch.
Certainly, certainly. So it sounds like we're all picking a national championship on Monday night between Duke and Florida, which will be a really, really great game, to be honest. I think just from a talent perspective, I think that would be a really fun matchup. I think we should give our full predictions here because the next time we do a show, the championship game will have already happened on Monday. So if we're gonna And who knows if Duke Florida is even going to be the matchup. Obviously, we don't get ahead of ourselves. But based on our predictions, Duke Florida, I'm gonna predict Duke to win that one as well, probably unsurprisingly, given I'm wearing a Duke t-shirt right now. But I think pretty much the same thing that we've been saying for most of the season in terms of the depth and talent just winning out. But I think if Duke gets past Houston, either the winner of Florida versus Auburn will be by far the best team they've played all season. And to be fair, they played Auburn way back earlier in the season and lost actually. So, but that was a long time ago in the terms of the progression of the season. So, um, Florida will be a big challenge for Duke, but I think they have sort of the players and personalities to rise to that challenge. So I am picking a Duke national championship, number 6, I believe, right, Jack?
That's right.
For the Duke Blue Devils, I'm going for 6, baby. I'm going for Duke over Florida in the Natty, Jack. What do you say?
I'm right there with you, Blake.
Let's go.
I'm right. I am also picking the Duke Blue Devils um, to win the sixth title, and they will be the most dominant dynasty in college basketball. And the Duke Blue Devils are bringing the sixth national championship home to Durham.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it, Mike. What are your thoughts here, man?
6-pack.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Oh, here we
Party
go.
in Durham.
Love it.
Here we go. Here
No
we go.
doubt.
All right. All right. Blake, you make it 4 for 4?
Absolutely. Listen, I think when Jackson met Coach K, I think Coach K whispered in Jackson's ear and told Jackson, and this is unconfirmed, and I don't think Jackson can even say this, but I think he told Jackson, in 2025, Duke will win the national championship. So I got to go with Duke.
He called his shot. He called his shot. I mean, listen, we've got all kinds of history of great coaches, great players from Duke. So, yeah, listen, if Coach K says it, it's going to happen. So I'm sure Coach K will be watching, if not there in person. So obviously
Hey, no matter what happens, Blake, if they win or don't, Jackson, you can tell me this is true or not, but Duke's not rebuilding. They're reloading because I think they got another heavy class coming in next year.
yeah, that is true. Yeah, we've got the two. If you remember Carlos Boozer, a great NBA player and Duke player before that, his two kids are both coming to Duke that are high recruits actually. So they're part of that reloading class for sure. So yeah, that's spot on, Blake, for sure. All right, so we've got predictions for Duke and Florida meeting on Monday night, and we've all got Duke taking the championship. So hopefully we're not the cursing them with the consensus here, but I'll knock on wood, and obviously we hope you all at home listening and watching enjoy the Final Four and the championship. So it's been, I think, overall been a really great college basketball season. I think we've seen some great teams and some great players. Um, Obviously Duke and Cooper Flag kind of being the top of that interest chart. But yeah, whoever wins, I think it's been a great season in college basketball, right, Jack?
That's right, Blake. Four great top seeds, and pretty much anyone's guess. Um, Pretty much anyone's guess, and really theory. A team and player can really show you of how great of a this tournament is, and really up for grabs. And yeah, I can't wait to see how this all unfolds and plays out for the final few weeks of the college basketball season.
Yeah, interesting side note about Cooper Flag. He turned 18 in December. He really should be a senior in high school,
Yeah,
but
I think he reclassified, right?
he got reclassified so he could come and play at Duke. So he's, a year ahead of himself. Yet he's playing at elite status. And it just shows you what kind of athlete he is.
Yeah, it makes it even more impressive what he's doing, right? Yeah, for sure.
Very, very much so.
For sure. I know once the college season ends, there'll be a lot of interest around him and a lot of the other a couple other Duke players as well as we get into
Hmm.
the NBA season, who's staying, who's going, etc. So, but I'm sure we'll be
Or
covering
the
that.
NIL deals to keep him.
Well, there you go. We certainly seen the figures increasing in terms of incentivizing players to stay. So you never know. You never know, and
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be tracking all that as we get closer to the NBA draft and the start of next season for sure. So.
Hmm.
All right, so now I think we should pivot to a little bit of baseball. As we know, we covered a little bit last week. Our last episode was recorded on opening day last Thursday. I know Uncle Mike, you were at opening day, right? So you want to
I was,
give us
I was.
the quick recap of your opening day experience?
Oh, it was just phenomenal. They went all out. They had the fire department was there right before the center field gate. Had the big, huge American flag on the hook and ladder trucks side by side. I mean, you just cannot beat opening day for all the pomp and circumstance. But the game itself, at least the first 6 innings, were Mackenzie Gore was pitching for the Nationals. He was lights out. He pitched to the minimum number of Phillies. He only gave up 1 hit, no walks, 13 strikeouts. The 1 hit was a single by Kyle Schwarber, who then got thrown out trying to steal second. And Keber Ruiz took Zach Wheeler, uh, tagged him for a home run. The Nats led 1-0 after the end of 6. But then our bullpen came in and the wheels completely fell off. And so, but it was fun being at the park. I love opening day.
Absolutely,
But
one of the great sporting traditions, Jackson opening day, isn't it?
Yeah, it never gets old. It's always part of the important calendar date in baseball history. It's always lives up to the expectations, and you're right, Blake. There's nothing quite like it. It's always very special, and there's nothing quite like a the start of a new baseball season. Is is that right, Blake?
Certainly, certainly, and obviously we've had about a week of games here, so we don't want to overreact or underreact to what we've seen. But obviously, teams like the Dodgers have been coming out strong. They're undefeated,
Yeah.
and you have to say the negative story of the season right now has been the Braves starting 0-7. Obviously, maybe you can caveat that with they're playing the two teams that are undefeated right now, Braves and
Well, yeah.
Padres, in their
Or
first two
maybe
series,
that's
but
yeah.
at the same time, it's certainly concerning a week into the season not having a win at all. And obviously, the walk-off home run from Matani last night was kind of the dagger in the heart there,
Yeah.
right?
On his bobblehead night.
There you go. It seemed like that one
The
was written in the
second year
stars.
in a row that he's hit a home run on his bobblehead night.
I guess pretty soon they'll start churning out a Otani bobblehead night more and more frequently if he's going to play that
Yeah.
well.
But the Braves, I mean, they lost Profar for 80 games,
That's a blow.
and Lopez is probably out for the season. Their right-handed pitcher, shoulder surgery today.
It's hard to have a worse first week of your season than what the Braves have had so far. So maybe I'll just join the bandwagon of some other team, Jack. But it's been certainly not a great start from an Atlanta perspective. But other teams I know in the American League have gotten off to a pretty hit and miss start. But Jack, I'm going to talk about the storyline of baseball. I can talk about records. I can talk about opening day, but the thing that keeps popping up if we're talking about baseball is a torpedo bat, Jackson. Now, this thing is really permeated to the news cycle here, torpedo bat. So I know we've talked about a little bit, Jackson, amongst ourselves, but I want to go to the baseball expert, Uncle Mike. What do you make of this phenomenon, if you want to call it? Obviously started by the Yankees. the
you know.
torpedo bat, where if you want to maybe explain kind of what it is and like what's the significance maybe behind these bats.
Yeah. Well, the torpedo bat, the uh, the sweet spot is moved down towards the label of the bat and not towards the end of the bat so much. So the shape is a little bit different, and that's why it's called a torpedo bat. Now, some hitters, particularly ones that get jammed or hit inside pitches, the people, the players who hit towards the label of the bat are benefiting from this torpedo bat because the sweet spot is moved down a little bit, and that's why they're starting to hit a lot.
So would that be the
Now,
players that are like not necessarily the power hitters, more so the players
well,
that you would?
it could still be a power hitter. I
Okay,
mean, power hitters get jammed, and some power hitters like to hit the inside pitches. But you got players like Judge, who typically hits the sweet spot of a regular bat,
right.
and he's not hitting with the torpedo bat, and he's still hitting home runs. But I think what the real clincher was the first weekend against the Brewers, the Yankees hit 15 home runs. 9 of those 15 were off of the torpedo bats.
There you go.
So now you got teams like the Phillies, who just the other day had a truckload of torpedo bats delivered to them.
Everyone's
And
scrambling now.
Dela Cruz with the Reds is using a torpedo bat, and he's hitting the cover off the ball. So who knows? I was MLB website has a good piece on the torpedo bat, and they have a couple commentators talking about what the torpedo bat does, and it's in some respects it helps some players swing the bat faster than the traditional bat, almost as if they were using an aluminum bat as far as their speed. So, but then you got it's you got some other players that probably going to stay with the regular bat for a while, but it's interesting phenomenon
Yeah.
where it's something new, and yeah, but we'll see.
Do we think it's a likelihood that the MLB sort of games and like rules committee will take a look at possibly banning it, or do we think it's
I
here to
don't think
stay?
so. I think it's here to stay. I think the players who are using it and using it well will keep it, uh, because there's nothing illegal about the bat. The 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 rules of baseball say that the bat length can't be over 42 inches and the diameter cannot be over 2.62 inches. And so it falls right in with the dimensions. I don't think baseball's going to change it. I think it's more likely that the NFL will ban the tush push before the baseball does anything
Well, there you go.
with the bat.
There you go. Yeah, there's all kinds of it's all about innovating to find that edge,
Plus,
right?
if players are hitting the ball more, that that generates more offense, which generates more excitement.
Good
The
for the
last
game.
thing MLB is going to do is do something to curtail excitement in the game.
No, for
I
sure.
think
They've
I think MLB is just loving this because the attention.
it's definitely gotten a lot of PR for sure, these torpedo bats, haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's great. I think it's good for baseball.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see more and more teams zero in on where some of their players typically where the ball hits their bat to determine, what shift in the bat's sweet spot needs to take place so these guys can be, a little bit better hitters. But, you know, it's not a miracle bat. I mean, the player still has to have just the phenomenal hand-eye coordination just to hit a baseball.
Right. Yeah. There's no cork in there, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
that doesn't, but I think just the publicity and just the excitement around it, uh, it's good for baseball.
For sure. For sure. Jackson, what do you made of this torpedo bat phenomenon? It's certainly been a lot of news around it recently, huh?
Yeah, there has. And when I first read and thought about it, I said to myself, "What in the heck am I watching?" And then you realize with the players playing on it and how it's trying to make the game speed up and make it more exciting for the fans and of all the players who are really into it, like at the same time, I'm enjoying it. It's let the fans and players enjoy what they want for try to get more home runs and get some more scores scores in as much scores in that you would like. I mean, the fans really want something different, and I agree with Mike. It's here to stay, and I think that what MLB is doing, and for its players, and for this experiment from spring training on, and to now the first few weeks of the season of how this is really going to turning out, and so far from many of the feedback that I've been getting from the fans is that I is that they're enjoying it. It's really something that they really want to see and what they live for, and how something that they really want the players to really get a crack at it and just get to what they really deserve and enjoy, and make them bat and hit the baseball whatever they feel like. And yeah, I'm all in it. It's here to stay. It's for a reason, and I think that the players and the fans might have got their wish from what this article I've been reading from what they deserve. And I think I'm with Mike here. It's here to stay, and I think the game has changed, and and then I think baseball has taken this torpedo bat thing for their players to a whole nother level.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Blake Limburger, have you been following this torpedo bat phenomenon in baseball? I'm curious to get your
Yeah,
thoughts on
it's
this.
so apparently the guy that created it is like I can't remember if they said he's like a
Yeah,
mathematician
I
or a
think
physicist or
yeah,
He's
yeah.
something.
MIT.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he's now employed by, funny enough, not the Yankees. He's employed by the Miami Marlins. Is that right, guys?
I thought it was a Yankees employee, but I could be wrong. Yeah.
No, he works for Miami, which is so strange. They picked him up. I don't know when they picked him up, but shocked that you're not hearing talk about Miami. My question is, and I don't know, guys, is the exit velo increase from these bats? I don't know if you guys mentioned that earlier. I'd be curious. Has the exit velocity coming off the bats increased because of this, or is
So
it
I
just like
think,
you
I
guys are saying
mean,
that the swings
Mike,
are
you can correct me if
faster?
I'm wrong, but I
Yeah.
think the science slash math behind it is that like you're not necessarily increasing your power or like speed, but you're just increasing your likelihood of hitting the spot where you want to hit it, where
Yeah,
you think
you're
you're gonna have a
you're
good,
you're
right?
gonna hit you're more likely to hit the sweet spot. If you typically
Mm,
hit the ball right around the label of the bat and you're using a torpedo bat, you're more likely then to hit the sweet spot. So because you're hitting the sweet spot, the velocity leaving the bat is going to increase. But
okay.
if you were to hit the sweet spot on a regular bat, the velocity doesn't necessarily change
Okay.
that
Let me
much.
let me ask you guys this. Do y'all think there will be less strikeouts, more foul balls because you got a little more, but you have more in the middle and less on the end. So could it increase strikeouts and Or is it going to increase or have less strikeouts and more foul balls because you got a thicker, it's going to be harder to get by that bat, right?
Yeah.
Am I crazy? What do y'all
Well, I
think?
think what thing you might end up doing is the pitchers may not throw inside as much. So they may try to go
Mm.
down and away on some of
Hmm.
these guys because then the sweet spot, they're not going to hit the sweet spot where they normally might have with a traditional bat. So I
That's
think the
true, Mikey.
pitchers,
I think you're going to see a
yeah, I was going to say, I think the pitchers are going to make some adjustments too for it.
correct. You're going to see a lot of balls telling on the outside away from the batters, I feel like, with this.
Yeah.
I love
Uh,
it. Hey, cat and mouse, man. I love it. Come on.
yeah.
And then they'll just
Hey,
move the sweet spot further out. They'll have bats with sweet spots with the torpedo on different parts of the bat.
There you go. I
an
think it's all about
hourglass, an hourglass bat.
there you go.
Hmm.
There you go. Just
That's
come
right.
out with the
Love the
big
sound of
foam
that.
bats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen baseball has been kind of the a huge arena for innovation, obviously over the years in terms of bringing in stats into the game and analytics and kind of that focus. So this is kind of a natural evolution of that is adjusting the actual tools of the players, right? So I think it's a
Mhm.
really interesting test case for kind of innovating the game in terms of the actual
Yeah.
equipment that the players use. So I'm curious to see how it develops and you know how it progresses throughout the rest of this season.
Yeah.
I think another MLB headline that I saw as well. I know Blake spent time in the Tampa area. I think they announced that they're gonna repair the old Tampa Bay Rays stadium for a cost of $22.5 million, the Tropicana Field. So it sounds like Tropicana Field is here to stay, and obviously they're playing at the temporary George Steinbrenner Field at the moment, the Tampa Bay Rays, that is. So it looks like they're going to be spending the money to repair Tropicana. So Tropicana is here to stay, it looks like.
Even though they've agreed to build the new stadium
No,
in St. Pete, Blake?
that ended up falling through. Yeah, so they had
Oh,
plans and it
really?
got shut down. Yeah.
Oh, is I wonder if now Tampa is back wanting I wonder if there's a chance that they'll end up in Tampa again because Tampa wanted them to begin with.
It seems like they're going to go back to Tropicana once they repair it. I think there was reports they submitted a proposal, so there was a 1.3 billion new stadium proposal, but the Rays ended up pulling out of
Yeah.
it. It ended up getting canceled. So right now the
Wow.
plan is to repair Tropicana at the cost of 22.5 million.
Wow.
The
So are they
Trop.
going to then be called the Nashville Cats?
I mean, it seemed like this is maybe a temporary fix, so I guess they'll return to Tropicana and be there for the time being. But the fact that they didn't get a long-term new stadium maybe would still lead to some speculation about the long-term future if they end up staying in Tampa. But for the time being, they're playing at a minor league stadium that they've converted. So
Yeah.
we got two teams playing in a minor league stadium, obviously,
I know. I was
with the
just thinking,
Athletics, yeah, as well.
I don't know if the Athletics have played a home game or not, but it'd
I think they just played their first home game, yeah.
be interesting to see what the attendance was.
Yeah, I didn't check that, but yeah, it's certainly an interesting scenario. Probably not what Commissioner Manfred would have envisioned for two of his franchises playing in minor league stadiums, but
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. They missed a golden opportunity. I need to get on the employment of one of these two teams, because if I'm one of those two teams and I want to get more fans nationwide, I'm going to play an away game every single game. I'm going to call all the minor league stadiums, and our home games, quote unquote, will be played at Charlotte's AAA Stadium. For a series, we'll play a home game. At Nashville's AAA Stadium, we'll play a home game. And we will get fans all across the nation. And we will play 100% away games in a season. How about that? Call me crazy.
it's certainly an idea. Yeah, I mean, it's that's basically
Test
what
drive. We'll test drive all the cities that want us. How about that?
there you go, like a traveling tour, like the Harlem Globetrotters of
Hmm.
Major League
Little
Baseball.
Savannah Banana action.
That, yeah, there you go. There you go. Not too far away, not too far away.
Fun stat with the Savannah Bananas, they had two fathers holding babies catch foul balls for outs at their last game.
Wow.
It's a fun stat. Yeah.
Well,
That's
Yeah.
impressive. That should count for 2 outs, in my opinion. If you're holding a
Yeah.
baby as well,
Yeah.
that's even
Yeah.
more impressive.
That would put a cheer in the crowd to all the to all the to all the families and for the people of all ages, the family friendly environment for the kids to enjoy. Tell you what, that would tell you what, if Uncle Mike were to make a trip to the Savannah Bananas stadium, it will remind me of taking his grandkids out to the circus.
There you go. Similar idea.
indeed,
Similar idea.
indeed.
Before we
So
wrap up, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, Jack, you got one of your favorite weekends next weekend coming up,
Oh yeah, what's that?
the Masters.
The Masters golf
Ah,
tournament.
the Masters.
Let's tease off next Thursday.
It's always an
That's
exciting
right.
time in the sports calendar, isn't it?
We got the
Yeah.
women's amateur happening, which is always fun to watch, which takes place over at the golf club where we used to live when we lived in Augusta, at that country club there that we used to live. Now where that has been the home of the women's amateur for the first and second round, but plays at Augusta National on Saturday. And then you have the par three contest, which is something that the little kids always participate in, which I feel like that should be something that Uncle Mike's grandkids should watch and tune in on TV, where it's pretty much going to go on all day, which I feel like I would encourage everybody to. And then of course you got the par three contest, which is also a family friendly event, which I feel like all of you should watch as well, which should be fun to watch with all the little kids and babies of their golfers just having a great time with all their family and friends and grandkids. It's really nothing quite like it. And then of course, and of course, the tournament kicks off on Thursday afternoon with the morning tea, which they always do every year, and that's where all the festivities begin. So, Masters Golf Tournament just less than a week away. It's already just about
Absolutely,
over
yeah.
here,
I think
and the
next,
azaleas blooming and the flowers and the nature of it. There's nothing quite like it,
indeed.
and I think Augusta National is going to give you all what you ask for, and that's really the beauty of it. And so the Masters, nothing quite like it. That's why they call it the tradition, unlike any other, unlike much like gymnastics words I use out of my mouth. But that's really but that's the beauty of the golf tournament, how it makes it so special, and
Yep.
really that's something that I think everybody should tune in and watch and enjoy. And of course, the Masters final round is going to be on Easter Sunday, so that will be worth watching for.
Yes, for sure, for sure. I think next week on our show we'll do a big Masters preview. So be sure to tune in. Before we close out here, though, Jackson, I have to mention a bit of a cool story that I'm going to include in the episode link for our podcast here. Some of you might be aware yesterday was World Autism Awareness Day, and because of that, there was a very cool article featured on the website of the Seattle Seahawks that featured Good Guy Sports and yourself, Jackson, and talking a little bit about our experience. As some of our listeners and viewers might be aware, we got to go out to a Seahawks game last year and experience that, as Mike is showing in his background there. Um, and so the Seahawks were kind enough to feature us on their website. So I'm going to be including a link on the YouTube and Spotify description. So if you want to check out the article, just go to the episode description below on YouTube and Spotify. But pretty cool experience. Obviously, Jackson, that was took place the game last year, but it's pretty special to be featured on the site of NFL team, right?
Oh, it really was. It really was. There was nothing quite like it that I'll remember for the rest of my life. They were very nice enough to show me around the stadium, the facility. Very nice people that treat me very well, and yeah, about the facility, meeting the players and the coaches and their staff. They were very nice, and it was very special. And being part of this people of how becoming very popular and on an NFL website. Be the first person to say that in the Gurley fan, which I don't think any of us have, and it, except for me
I certainly
because I'm
haven't.
very lucky and popular. And yeah, I mean, it's very special, and I was nice enough to be part of this team and group that I was with, and the experience that I had, and of enjoying a special family and seeing the and then seeing the special sensor room in the stadium, and telling all things of seeing Ben's room and how the whole family enjoyed it, and really how I enjoyed my experience with the Seahawks, and was very special, and something that I will probably remember for the rest of my life. And yeah, that was something that I will hopefully enjoy and live for. And yeah, it was very special. Great people to be with.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I mentioned, I will include a link to the article. So please go give that a view on the Seahawks website for all of our listeners and viewers. But yeah, very very cool experience, and shout out to Karen from the Seahawks as well for including us in that, and shout out to the organization for making us a part of that for sure. So very very special. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that takes us to the end of our show here. So I want to thank Jackson, Mike, and Blake for joining us on this special show. Obviously, we covered the big Final Four games and a few other topics. So just want to say enjoy the Final Four and the championship for all you sports fans out there. Should be a great weekend. So on behalf of Good Guys Sports, we will see you next week.
All right. See you guys. Go Duke.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you guys. Bye.